to the Point of Impact podcast with Rick McDaniel. Thanks for joining us today. Get ready to be inspired and motivated to live a high-impact life. Now, here's Rick.
Welcome to the Point of Impact podcast. I'm Rick McDaniel. It's great to have you joining with us in this first episode in 2025. Let me say this wasn't supposed to be the first episode. That should have been last week. We did take a week break for the holidays, but we weren't supposed to take 2-week break. But unfortunately, a confluence of events involving travel, a major commitment that I had, throw in some sickness, a snowstorm, and you put it all together, and it just did not allow us to be able to produce a show last week. So sorry about that. Hopefully I'll make it up to you today and in the days to come, weeks to come with these episodes that we're going to do. So there's the reason for it. And all I can say is we're ready to go today. And I'm excited about what we're going to launch into. Probably about 7 or 8 episodes on just really kind of these indispensable pieces of wisdom and advice that I would give you as you start a year, and frankly, start any year or any time in the year. This is just my sort of gold standard material that I can share with you about what I think makes for a successful, fulfilling, purposeful, and most importantly, from my perspective, high impact life. This is really what it's all about. I'm excited to be able to share this with you. I will tell you that those of you that listen regularly know I'll do, 10 ways, 10 habits. This is kind of almost like that, only instead of one episode with 10, I'm going to go drill down deep into each one as a single episode. So I think it will be very helpful and very good, and I look forward to sharing these with you. Let me just say, between now and when we broke at the end of last year, I did have a major Fox News article come out on Greater and here's how 2025 can be a greater year. So if you didn't read that, please do. It's very popular, lots and lots of response. You can find that on foxnews.com. Was published on January 1st. So it's been out for a little while, but the material is perfect for whenever you're ready to read it as you look into a new year, which, by the way, we're only halfway through the first month here. So we've got just getting started. We got plenty of year left. We got plenty of month left. So it's good. Also came out the Bible app, Bible.com, largest Bible app in the world, with the Greater Plan, which is 5 days of inspiration to increase your faith. So a free 5-day plan. You just go on the Bible app and just type in Greater Rick McDaniel. You'll see it, and then you can start the plan. And then each day you can get inspired and motivated for 5 days for free right on your phone. You can listen to it. You can read it, whatever you want to do. Fantastic opportunity that you have to be able to do that, and thankful for my partnership with YouVersion, the Bible app, as I'm thankful for my partnership with Fox News. I mean, these are fantastic partners to have. They are both at the top of their game in terms of massive website, massive over 500 million on the Bible app in terms of people, 500 million people. I mean, it's incredible. And then Fox News website is one of the largest websites in the world, millions and multiple millions and millions. And if you know the Pat McAfee show, I just can't, he does this thing, I just think so hilarious. Millions and millions and millions. So there's my little ploy on Pat McAfee. But anyway, lots of people. So great partnerships with both of those groups. So article on foxnews.com. And I won't do that millions and millions and millions of things again anytime soon. And Greater Plan, 5-day reading plan. Just take like 3 minutes each morning on the Bible app, Bible.com. So take advantage of those free resources to help you start your year. Also, just one more thing real quick. 3 steps to a greater year. I put that out. It's a marvelous, simple 3-step plan of something you do every 2 months, something you do every quarter, and something you do once a year. If you're looking for a simple way to make a big difference in this year and maybe you want to try something different than resolutions, this is another version of it, but a very cool plan, and that would be on X at Rick McDaniel. It would be on Rick McDaniel HIL on Facebook, Rick McDaniel _official on Instagram. You could find it on any of those outlets. It's a great little 3-step process. And man, if you just do one thing every 2 months, do one thing once a quarter, one thing once a year, you'll have a totally different year than you've had before. And it's so simple and easy to follow. So make sure you get that, look that up. If you have any, questions, problems, can't find something, need something, you can always go to rickmcdaniel.com, go to the email communication and just, type in what you need, and we'll get back with you and help you find it, get it, point you in the direction of it, whatever the case may be. All right. So my distilled wisdom of many years of life experience, success, accomplishment, whatever you want to call it, impact is the word I would use. So that's what we're going to just drill down on. These are some of my kind of famous phrases, you can say that again sort of thing, stuff that I've just repeated over and over again. People have heard me speak and read stuff I've written, know me, heard these before, time and time again, but it's one thing to just say it. It's another thing to really drill down into it. So here's today's. When you do all you can do, God does what only he can do. By the way, several of these phrases are actually a part of a card, like a greeting card line. There's like 10 cards. Several of these fit onto that as well. So stuff I've talked about for a long time. And now I get a chance, which I've never done in this way in this podcast, to really just explain it and expand on it in a greater way. And so let me just start by telling you a story. It's about 30-year-old story. May remember it, may have heard of it, may be total news to you. But there was a time when there was a conflict in Bosnia-Herzegovina. This is, again, going back 30 years. It's in June of 1995. And a guy named Scott O'Grady was shot down. He was an Air Force captain. Shot down while he was flying over Bosnia. And for 6 days and nights, he had to rely on his survival training, his cunning, his every resource he had, and his deep faith in God to avoid being captured and killed. Flying F-16, supporting the United Nations peacekeeping effort to enforce a no-fly zone. So that's how he got there. That's what he was doing. He was flying his plane in support of the lead plane, which was piloted by his friend Captain Wright. And suddenly, the two planes were over some rugged mountainous terrain, and 2 missiles shot in the air, and the second missile hit Scott's plane. And so he ejected and got out of his parachute, ejected with parachute and landed in a clearing and got out of his parachute, grabbed the survival gear, started to run. And his hope was that, maybe he could run for miles and miles before anybody would ever come after him. And that's not what happened. He only ran about 100 yards. And then he realized, I am not going to be able to get out of this and get away. So for 6 days, he waited with people as close as 5 feet away from him, hunting for him. Helicopter chasing after him. He had to lay still, motionless, so he wouldn't give away his position. So wow. So he began to pray. He asked for God's help and God's protection. He had a survival pack, but within 3 days, the water was gone. So now he had to find water, and he couldn't get up and walk around to find water, so the water had to come to him, and that came in the form of rain, and he used a sponge to collect the rain, but it wasn't raining that heavily, And he tried to save whatever he could, squeeze it into a bag, and then drink from it later. The last day, he ran out of water. Where he was hiding became a mud hole. His feet were wet, so he literally took his socks off, squeezed the water out of his socks, and drank it. Now you can imagine how nasty that was. He didn't eat much. Of course, you can survive many days without food, and I've done many fasts up to 20 days. Fasted over 50 times in my life for at least like 3 days, 5 days, 7 days, 10 days. So no problem there. It's not obviously easy, but it can be done. But you can't get around without water. Kept calling on his radio night after night. No one ever answered. Kept praying, asking God to help him. Then 6 days, turned on his radio and heard something. He said, "This is Basher 5-2. I'm alive. Response back, "Copy that. Good to hear your voice." And 5.5 hours later was rescued. It's an amazing story. And it's an amazing example of when we do all we can do, God does what only he can do. Scott O'Grady did everything he could do to stay alive, including drinking water from nasty socks that he wrung out, including staying motionless so that he wouldn't be detected. I mean, he did everything that he could do. And then God did what only he can do by answering his prayer and by allowing him to miraculously be rescued. And that story is, in a nutshell, this concept, this principle about the part we play and about the part that God plays in our lives. It is positively, absolutely not all up to you. And it's positively, absolutely not all up to God as if you do nothing. It is a true partnership. It is why I believe Jesus said, "I don't call you servants, I call you friends." We are in this relationship with God, a personal friendship relationship with God through Jesus Christ. And we see this, by the way, throughout the Bible. For instance, you see David doing what he could do, God does what only he can do. Moses does what he can do, God does what only he can do. Peter does what he can do, God does what only he can do. Paul, same thing. Same exact concept. If you're looking for some type of Bible verse, in Ephesians 6:13, it says, "After you have done everything." You have to do everything you can do. And just so you know where this is in the part of the Bible where it's talking about putting on the full armor of God. So we have a job to do to put on the armor. But after we have done it, after we have put on the armor, we've done what we can do, then God does what only he can do. And that is precisely how this works. But we have to do our part. And again, we just read it. We just read those words, having done everything. Now you can go to 1 Corinthians chapter 15 and verse 58, and you would read these words. Keep busy working for the Lord. Always keep busy working for the Lord. So again, we have a part to play in this. We have to do. It's much easier for most of us to believe that God's going to do his part. I don't know. Maybe that's true. Maybe it's not true. Easier for me, I think, to believe God. People of greater faith, I think, have greater belief that God's going to do it. But sometimes we forget we have to do our part. We have a part to play. And then we can watch and see what God does. You know, Scott O'Grady just did everything he could to survive. All of the training he had received, all of the survival pack that he had, the radio, he did everything right on his end to live. But That was not enough until God intervened and allowed, first of all, to have rain so he would have water, because after 3 days he had no water. So another 3 days, he's not going to make it because you have to have water. You can't go more than 3 days. God provides the water through rain, and then God provides a rescue. We must do our part, and then you just know that God's always going to do his part. So let's start with we must do our part. It begins with believing in God, but also believing in yourself that that you have gifts and talents and abilities and a brain, and you're going to do something with it. There's a phrase that I got introduced to a number of years ago when it came time to buy property and get involved in various real estate transactions, build buildings, all the stuff that I did previously. And the phrase is due diligence. You have to do your due diligence. We spent a year doing due diligence before we bought this very significant piece of property, which turned out to be a phenomenal decision. But we had to do our due diligence. You have to do your due diligence. No one wants to wait a year. You want to, like, when you buy something, you want to buy it and start building, but you got to do your due diligence. So what does it mean to do all you can do? And I think if you were to boil it down, the word would be commitment. Like, you've got to be fully committed. You've got to be willing to do all that you can do. You have to be willing to do it. Are you willing to dig deep? Are you willing to break up hard ground? Are you willing to work harder? Are you willing to work longer? Are you willing to work smarter? Are you willing? Like, in this year, you can say, I want this to be my best year ever. I want it to be the greater year. You talking about this greater. Yeah, greater. This is a greater life is waiting for you. This is going to be a greater year. It can be. But that does not mean that you somehow, sort of miraculously just sit back and say, hey, God, zap me. You do it. I'll just sit here and watch. There's a watching that happens. No doubt about it. That's why the Bible has this funny phrase where it says watch and pray. It doesn't say pray. It doesn't say watch. This is watch and pray. You watch, then you pray, then you pray, then you watch. God's going to do stuff, but, we have to do something too. And in that case, it's pray. And in other cases, it's more. It's good old fashioned work. It's preparation. I was just talking with someone, one of this big event that kept me from part of what kept me, along with weather and all these other factors, sickness from last week's episode, about speaking and how the amount of preparation that goes into like a major speech or major message or sermon or whatever you want to call it, keynote. You got to do your work. You can't just stand up there and be like, okay, God, fill my mouth, fill my mind with thoughts that I can say. Having said that, I've never really gotten up after hours and hours of preparation and years of experience and completely knowing a subject, ever gotten up and just said the things I prepared to say. There's always more that God gives us that just drops these nuggets into our brain. So it's constantly this, we do all we can do, God does what only he can do. God does what only he can do, but we have to do all we can do. You have to challenge whatever the obstacles are that are limiting your dreams. You just have to say, I'm not accepting that. I'm not going to just give up. I'm not going to say this isn't going to happen. You're going to say, I will challenge this. And it is a battle. It is a battle. And if you study it all or read it all or just listen, watch, whatever, people's stories, these people that are successful, inevitably you discover the amount of time they spent toiling, banging up against obstacles, This comedian Nate Bargatze is like one of the hottest guys out there now. At his own like Christmas special. It's like unbelievable. This guy, left Tennessee and went to New York and was there for years just working comedy clubs. Nothing. No. Years and years of working at his craft before he finally broke through. And that's the story that you hear time and time again in all different aspects of life and dreams and pursuits. There's the famous 10,000 hour rule. You got to do something for 10,000 hours. And in Malcolm Gladwell's book, he talks about how the Beatles, a lot of people don't know that the Beatles didn't just stay like in Liverpool or in England, but they went to Germany repeatedly over a number of years, playing gigs, refining their craft, getting better, working harder, smarter, longer before they finally had their break. You got to do what you can do. And you can't let the frustrations make you want to give up. You got to keep trying. You got to keep, casting your nets out into the water. And like this time is going to be the time that you're going to have the big catch. The good break is finally going to come. And of course, that's what happens. That's exactly how it works. Someone gets a big break and all of a sudden they get introduced to people, to opportunities, to connections, to networks that they never had before. It's not like they were doing nothing. It's just, it just had to wait till that happened, and no one wants to wait for that. But that's how it is for most people. And even someone like a Tom Cruise, who really had almost like instantaneous success in Hollywood, which is very rare. But again, even him, the amount of effort and work, if you know anything about him, the way he pours himself into these projects, I mean, it's impressive. It is impressive. So he's still doing the work. We're really talking about a godly ambition. And let's just talk about ambition for a moment. It's a divine drive within you. You put forth effort and you expect a return. And there could be ungodly ambition if it's focused just say on money or stuff and greed, but there's certainly nothing wrong with and a lot right with ambition. I would absolutely argue that in terms of my greater message that I'm going to be carrying all around this country this year, that godly ambition is what God uses to do greater things. If you don't have ambition, the greater message is not appealing to you or as appealing to you as it would be to other people. And then the other side of it is God will do his part. God's always going to do his part. You don't have to worry about that. God's always at work. In fact, here's a good way to understand it. God's ahead of you. God's ahead of you. God is ahead of you. God is working and God is working ahead. He's our source of wisdom and strength. He's got the answers. He's got all the answers. So just understand that, because it's really important to realize that God can turn obstacles into opportunities, stumbling blocks into stepping stones, problems into possibilities. I mean, this is God's specialty. This is how he works. God will do his part. It's called God's favor. It's called the blessings of God. You can ask for it. You should ask for it. You're in much better position to receive it if you do all you can do. God's with you. His people can help you. One of his names is provider. In terms of Hebrew names, Yahweh, Rapha, and it literally means the God who sees the need and provides. The God who sees the need and then provides for the need. He sees your need. He can provide for your need. I mean, that's how God operates. That's the way God works. It's really, really exciting to realize that. And another way to think about it is, if you want God to do the super, you need to do the natural. You know, you work in the natural and God works in the supernatural. But if you want the super, you got to do the natural. If you do the natural, God can do the supernatural. And this is very exciting when you just kind of ponder this. The reality is that, you know, God is just really so much greater than many times we're allowing him to be in our lives. And we need to open ourselves up to the possibility that if I do what I'm supposed to do, God's going to do some amazing things. Like, amazing. Another way to think about it is this. God does the showing, you do the going. You know, God does the showing, you do the going. Like, you know, you have to do the going and God does the showing. So it's really a marvelous way to understand life and success and impact and effectiveness, whatever word you want to use, whatever word works for you, is to be able to say, you know, it's truly a partnership between us and God. It is a relationship. It's a beautiful thing to see what God can do. And I would say that we just really focus on, you know, the favor of God more than maybe the favors from God. Just focus on, you know, God, and God can do it. And then just see what he does. See what he does. It's amazing to be able to watch God work and just do remarkable things, because he can. He can. He absolutely, positively can. He specializes in impossible things. He works in the miraculous. And when we do what we can do, which we can't do the miraculous, we don't do supernatural, we do natural. We have to have God's work in order for big things to happen, breakthroughs to take place, major victories to be realized. Great news, God's absolutely willing to do that. Has no hesitancy whatsoever about working in huge ways, and has, again, history is just replete with examples, just amazing stories of the way in which God works and the kind of provision that God can provide. So it's just a matter of, we have to do what we do and then just watch and pray and ask and say, God, you know, I've done my part and I can't do more than this, but I know you can. I know you are able. The Bible says God is able to do exceedingly, abundantly, beyond all we could ask for or even think. I mean, holy smokes. Because I can think of a lot of stuff. Beyond, exceedingly, and abundantly beyond what we could ask for or even think. And that's the power of God. So he's going to do it. When we do all we can do, he's going to do what only he can do. And what only he can do is anything. Anything and everything. But you have to do your part. And then you have to believe that God's going to do his part. And some of you, you're not doing your part today. And that needs to change in 2025. And some of you are, but you're not believing that God can do it. And God can do it. And you need to this year practice faith, increase your faith and believe for greater, because God has greater in store for you. Have a great week.
You've been listening to the Point of Impact podcast with Rick McDaniel. Thanks for tuning in, and we look forward to you joining us for our next episode.